The new PvP update that rewrote the ground rules of Crucible landed this week, and after several hours of playing in the new sandbox, I've got lots of thoughts sort of swirling around up in my old man noggin to share with you all. Some are good, some are concerns, some are sort of neutral observations, and some predictions about how this season is going to play out in terms of meta and playstyles. I was taking notes in my notepad all day while playing, so I wouldn't forget to include anything, and all the gameplay in this video was recorded in the new sandbox, so there's no old gameplay here. So let's dive into it and try to consolidate some good feedback about how the new update is playing so far. And if you need a refresher on what exactly changed with this update, then check out my video called The New PvP Sandbox for Dummies for a quick explanation. Alright, first let's talk about things that got better, or just sort of went up in terms of usage rate. After several hours of playing, I noticed a lot of things that seemed immediately more popular to run. One major factor on day one was people were playing a lot less aggressive, less chaotic. Sure, there's still like that one guy that grapples in, into every engagement with an SMG and a shotgun like a wild man. And honestly, I like playing against those people because they keep things interesting. But I encountered a whole heck of a lot of team fire. Lots of shoulder-to-shoulder teams who would simply stand together at the end of a choke point and wait for an engagement to happen to them. They wouldn't go seek one out. And if you peeked, you're dead. They've got three guys standing there with igneous hammers, messengers, etc. And as long as they all shoot you when you peek, you're dead in an instant. But this might not be a permanent change, honestly, because I already started adjusting to that playstyle myself with some fun responses of my own. One thing that became immediately clear is that crowd control abilities felt so much more useful on day one of the update. I scored plenty of multi-kills with stasis shatters between my osmiomancy gloves and the cryesthesia. Quick sidebar here, I was totally right about cryo. It feels even more powerful in the current sandbox. In fact, precision and adaptive frame sidearms in general are kind of crushing it right now. Traveler's Chosen, Boudica, Drang, due to the reduction in body shot damage, these weapons that are if you're seasoned with sidearms, they're not just body shot spammers. They're easy to get 3 and 4 tap optimal kills, if you're hitting the head. So I recommend you try them out. But getting back to the crowd control point, it's definitely worth noting that the consecration buff, it goes friggin' hard.
Wage war like a true titan. 3 opponents down. Look at them fall.
With all these numpties standing shoulder to shoulder at the end of a choke point, I got so many free multi-kills with my consecration explosions wiping half the team or more. So in sixes, you may want to try experimenting with some crowd control builds and see what kind of shenanigans you can get up to. Let's talk about pace in general. Some matches were dynamic and explosive, but many of them were slow and passive. I think it's too early to tell if this is just people trying to get settled in on day one and understand the changes, or if this is the way that things will, trend in the future. But because of the standoffish nature of PvP yesterday, most games were finishing with the top slayers in the lobby sitting at 24 to 28 kills total. The match just sort of moseyed along at a walking pace, many of them going to time. I'm hopeful that this is really just people settling in and not the way people are going to be playing moving forward. And that is definitely more on the control side of things, not so much the supremacy, because the game mode of supremacy encourages you to move around the map and pick up crests. So I ended up switching to hyper-aggressive builds to try to keep things interesting and force engagements. But some maps feel undeniably worse than before. With an emphasis on teamfire and choke point control, Wormhaven, for example, was downright awful to play on every time I got it yesterday. Teammates were afraid to push into the middle of the map, and enemies simply stood with barricades and rifts on the other end of the choke points waiting for us to walk into their firing squads. Frankly, I haven't enjoyed that map for a while because of those design choices, and yesterday it felt remarkably and notably worse. Let's talk weapon choices. One thing I noticed right off the bat was pulse rifle usage went up considerably. People naturally wanted to have mid-range covered with the lack of special ammo early in the match, so aggressive pulses are a good choice under these conditions, and I saw a whole lot of messengers in the lobbies. Conversely, Igneous remains a top choice as well for similar reasons, but I suspect that also has a lot to do with the fact that 140 hand cannons do sort of feel worse as a whole. Things like Eyes Luna, Kept Confidence, Palindrome, etc. People were commenting pretty quickly that due to the damage drop-off at range, 140s basically turn into 4-tap machines the very second you reach that range threshold. You can get 2 headshots at optimal range, and take a single step past the threshold, and the third bullet won't kill, leaving you to go in for a fourth shot. And because of that inconsistency and the unreliability, I saw 140 usage continue to decline in my lobbies over time as people went to things like Messenger, Amit, Igneous Hammer for more reliable rapid kills. 120 hand cannons were obvious choices, with people playing a little bit more back, a little more safe, and lane-to-lane combat. They still do massive chunk damage and are fairly forgiving when it comes to hitting headshots, aim assist, and your headshot to body shot ratio. They're a little more forgiving. So people were definitely trending towards 120 hand cannons for sure. But what about special usage? It's definitely down early in the matches, right? No doubt about that. Primary fights are more prevalent, and that's just, I think, in my opinion, that's more enjoyable for sure. Some folks are already catching on that running Igneous Hammer and Immortal Adept is a great choice. You've got both range and CQC combat covered with S-tier weapons, and special isn't even an issue. But overall, I'm appreciating the emphasis on primary weapon usage and on precision. The one thing I'm not crazy about when it comes to special ammo is sort of how unpredictable it is, right? It used to be simple. Everyone had a couple of shots of special and could get another by picking it up off of a corpse. But now, I don't really have a clue when to expect special ammo usage from my opponent. It seems more haphazard, and counting shots doesn't help anymore because they could have been stockpiling green. Overall, I like this more than the previous system so far, but my one complaint is the lack of transparency about who has special and when. Alright, let's move on to matchmaking. I played a lot in the Supremacy playlist, and I played a lot of skill-based matchmaking control. And I think some weird stuff is going on with the day one update, because stuff was just not working properly. So it's hard to give a good assessment of matchmaking because I really do think some stuff was just out of whack. I had 10-minute queues that ended up just dying and kicking you back to orbit with an error code. I had consistently long waiting times in connection-based matchmaking as well as skill-based. We had absolute blowouts where not a single person on my team went positive, myself included, because of the genuine slaughterfest that unraveled in skill-based matchmaking, where things should be competitive and tight. Enemy team is almost entirely triple positive. I mean, it was a mixed bag. Sometimes I was the boot and sometimes I was the ant getting stomped on. There seemed to be no rhyme or reason to it. And it led to a whole lot of leavers as well. And even on day one, where lots of people should be playing and checking out the new update, right? The game was still consistently unable to find teammates to fill in those gaps when somebody left. I mean, it was kind of the Wild West out there. There also seemed to be many more occurrences of the infinite lobby bug, where at the end of a PvP match, you go back to orbit, but there's no text on screen. Your ship just sort of floats there, and you can't queue anything up. You can't fly to the tower, can't go to the next match. You just have to go to switch characters to reset it. I think I got that 5 times on stream yesterday alone. Also talking about bugs, the Wish Ender bug is still alive and well. It happened several times to me yesterday where the enemy will take they'll take the shot at you with the Wish Ender, and nothing happens. You're like, haha, you missed, idiot. And I stay in the fight, only for the damage to register a full 2 seconds later. And now I'm toast because I stayed in the fight and the game didn't tell me that I had very little health. So beware of that. If you're dueling a Wish Ender, just step into cover every time they take a shot, even if it seems like they missed. It may just be really delayed to show you the damage that they dealt. Now, a couple flyby observations before we wrap this up. Bow usage does seem to be lower, which I like. Pocket Singularity for Voidwalkers feels much weaker now that it's doing even less damage to the total player health. And Tommy's Matchbook do be shredding. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Overall, I think a lot of this sandbox feels better in many ways. Less ability spam, Thread League spam is down, primary fights are up, but I think we'll have to sort of wait and see how the community settles into things. I mean, the Destiny 2 community will always find the path of the least resistance and find the easiest ways to generate success in PvP. This update will just make them shift again until they find it. And until they do, try to enjoy yourself. Use some crowd control builds and instigate a little bit of chaos. Thanks for watching, and share your feelings and thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And please consider liking and subscribing to the channel as we are making that push to 300,000 subs, which is really cool to me. Thanks as always. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I do hope to catch you in the Crucible.
5 minutes left. Keep it up. fight together. Nothing